Good day to all my listeners and supporters. Thank you so much for clicking on one of my videos. I really appreciate for liking and watching my videos. It really means so much to me as a small YouTuber. Again, I am here with one of my latest video. 5 scary short stories that will give you creeps. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you want to distress and escape from the reality, please care to subscribe in my small channel. Say something. It won't kill. I will try my best to reply on those comments. If there is something that I need to improve, tell me in the comment box. It's a great help for me to improve, and I won't forget those who were the pioneer listeners to this channel. Without further ado, let's begin. I have lived in a house that is haunted by a past owner for 16 years. I knew that there was something here right away after moving in. I would hear footsteps in my hallway when everyone was asleep, and would sometimes just feel another person's presence when I was supposed to be alone. There has never been any fear of it, nor have any of my family members felt threatened in any way. When my daughter was around 1, now 13, she was sitting in her high chair, eating a snack while I was doing some dishes. She was always high energy, rambunctious child, and would want out of the chair immediately after finishing her food. When this happened, she would kick her legs and make her tray fall off onto the floor. She had only started doing this, so I was still finding ways to keep her from getting injured, such as falling out. Well, this time, my daughter falls off forwards with the tray. I didn't even have time to react. Before I could even try to run over, I was maybe 5 feet away from her. My child just stops in mid-air, halfway to the floor. I blink, and she is back in her chair and blowing spit bubbles, all happy like. If this had not happened right in front of my eyes, I wouldn't believe it at all. This is how I began my research as to exactly who lived here and what happened. My resident ghost is a kindly, older gentleman who passed away in the house. He likes to whistle tunes on Sunday mornings and doesn't like it when we are not very nice to each other. We call him Gramps because he is loving and protective like a grandpa. He is very much a member of our family. He protects us from the other entities that like to pass through. We live near a large river, which is said to hold paranormal energy in and around it. I believe that. There seem to be many portals in and around my area. My friend Nathan lived in the neighborhood about 8 years ago in a house that they swore was haunted. His mother had a sore shoulder one night from work. The family was in the living room watching TV. They had 3 sons, all older than the age of 10. His mom said she went to lay down and go to bed. The kitchen light shone into the bedroom, and she said she opened her eyes to see a blonde kid about 4 feet 11 inches or 5 feet 2 inches with a bowl cut. He was standing at the end of her bed, staring at her. She couldn't see very well and thought if it was her son. "Nathan," she called out. When she looked away, then back, he was gone. Nathan was in the living room watching football. Another time, 2 in the morning, they were jolted straight up out of bed, and when they heard a soul-piercing child scream, they ran to Nathan's room and found him fast asleep. They picked him up, thinking he was having a nightmare. He wasn't. He was confused as to why they were in his room, and then he fell back asleep. Alternately, his father had gotten up for work one morning at 5 and took his coffee and a cigarette out front to smoke. He went back inside to use the restroom and mentioned to me that Nathan would usually run to the room when he got up to cuddle with Mom. As he was in the restroom, he heard the feet running by and he thought, "There goes Nathan." When he went into Nathan's room, he was in his bed, fast asleep once again. Nathan's dad thought, this is odd. He never goes back to bed, and proceeded to grab his coffee and go back outside. Upon opening the front door, the family's car keys were on the welcome mat in front of the front door outside. I remember getting home the night before and hanging them up too. It started after my dad died. I was 15, and a few days after he died, I woke up in the middle of the night and went to get a drink. In the kitchen, I saw him sitting there and still half asleep. Didn't think anything of seeing him as he told me he loved me and to have a good night. I turned to go to my room and realized what I had seen. When I turned around, he was gone. After that, things started happening around our house. One morning, all the kitchen cabinets were open, and the back door, which was known to stick, started opening to let the dog out and close behind it. One night, I went to sleep, and everything was turned off. I woke up to everything in my room. Everything was on. Lights, TV, computer, alarm clock, going off with no reason. Why? Only in my room. Doors would lock by themselves. Candles would blow out for no reason. After about a year of this, I woke up to a man standing in my room by my closed and locked windows. He looked almost 50s. Prime hat, gray suit, wingtip shoes. His face so pale it looked like it was painted white. And his face, although it looked normal, seemed anything but like his skin was elastic and capable of contorting in ways that weren't really possible. It was almost alarmingly angular. He didn't say anything to me, but I understood him. He didn't want me to be scared. But I was, and I went to scream. He was gone. He just vanished into thin air. He randomly appeared in my room 5 times over several months. By the 4th time, I decided it was probably some bizarre waking nightmare. So I'd said to myself that I was going to make light of all the situation. He appeared. He took his hat and held it, showing a widow pick that was receding a little, and his hair was a little thin in the front and back, but slicked back and shiny. He looked jet black next to his skin. With his hat off, he looks more alarming. So I started making sarcastic jokes, which seemed to take him off guard, and he smiled honestly, and the most unsettling smile I've ever seen. It stretched across his face, seeming to go straight back to his ears. I asked why he was coming to me, and the smile disappeared. He replied, "I don't know exactly, but you're special." After a few more jokes, I told him it was weird coming to a teenage girl in the middle of the night, and I wanted him to stop. He vanished as soon as I said the thought. The last time I saw him, I walked to him standing far closer than he'd even come to me. He had moved away from the windows and was standing directly at the foot of my bed. He saw fear on my face and stepped out around the edge of the bed. I yelled for him, "Leave me alone," and started screaming. His face came close to me. I can still see the pores on his forehead as his bow wrinkled, and he smiled again, grabbing my arm to stop my swing. My door flew open and my mom came running into my hysterical screams. I never saw him again, but I've always felt like I would. Roughly 8 years later, when I met my husband, we were talking about scary things. I just mentioned it and he immediately freaked out, saying that he'd seen the Grinning Man. I never heard of him, and he pulled up some drawing that looked terrifyingly similar. I never told anyone about it before him. 8 years later that, a few months ago, I walked up to a black shadow of a person with a brim hat at the foot of our bed. My husband walked immediately and it was gone. Some strange things happened after that, like things flying off shelves, seeing mist and balls of light. It wasn't just me. My husband saw it. My kids were even seeing it. Then, after about a month, everything just died down. I'm just looking for answers. If it was the Grinning Man, why does he visit people? I don't know. I don't know much about this stuff, and any help, ideas, theories would be appreciated. The encounter occurred while I was on holiday in Crete with my family, mom, dad, and two sisters. The villa where we were in had two bedrooms, one with a double bed where me and my sister were sleeping. The other bedroom had two single beds where my mother and other sister were sleeping, and my father was sleeping on the pull-out couch in the living room. The town the villa was in was prone to having electrical blackouts, and being a 7-year-old, this scared me. So lo and behold, one night there was a blackout that scared me and my sister, resulting in us both ending up sleeping in the room with my mother and other sister. This is the room layout. The room was long, with glass patio doors at one end to the outside, and the other end of the room was two single beds, parallel to each other, hugging the opposite walls. I was sleeping on the bed on left next to my mom, and the other bed with my two sisters was directly across from me between the gap. Anyway, I fell asleep. During the night, I woke up, and this is where I had the experience. I looked down towards the patio doors while lying on my side, and there was a woman walking towards me. I was frozen with fear. It was such a shocking thing to just see. The woman had a whitish color and was semi-transparent and wearing a long white gown similar to a wedding dress. I'm sure she actually had a pretty face, but the fact I was looking at a ghost, it didn't calm me down at all. I remember saying over and over in my head, "Don't look at me. Don't look at me." As her eyes were fixated forwards, and if she looked down at me, I would have legit fricked. Anyway, she calmly continued walking forwards between the two beds and passed through the wall right next to my head. I told all my family the next morning and remind them of it every now and then. I hope to one day travel back to the same villa in Crete and see if it would happen again. Definitely a freaky encounter, but I'm glad it happened to me. From as young as I can remember, I had a friend who I could talk to who lived in the wardrobe. Now, back when I was a child, 6 or under, I was always in bed very early. In fact, some might say it was poor parenting now, but my child at that age consisted of waking at 7:30 a.m., going to preschool and infant school, which finished at 3 p.m., then coming home, having tea, and then straight to bed. It was a staple that we would watch Play School, which finished at 4 p.m., and then have a race, me and my sister, who could go to bed quickest. Seeing as only good children went to bed, bad children had to stay up. Great reverse psychology there. Anyway, my friend who I can still see now, like not really see but visualize. Well, he was an older man in his late 50s perhaps, normal human size, with a white beard that was perhaps an inch and a half long. He wore lumberjack clothing and had a great big axe. I had never seen a lumberjack or axe before, so when I first saw 1 year later, I knew that he had been. So my father and mother would often hear me talking in my room and having a one-sided conversation with someone, but they never came in, and they simply thought it was a childhood friend. And they were right, for some part at least. Well, that being that I only ever saw him as a child. I don't recall what we talked about, but I got the feeling that old man was lonely, needed a friend, and was always there for me when I was on my own. I felt very comfortable with him around. One day, I was around 6. I came home and my father was in the back garden, and he was chopping up my beautiful old oak wardrobe, breaking it, smashing it, and eventually burning it. He made sure it was gone forever, but that was just him. His way of getting rid of rubbish. He liked to, in fact, no, even now he still likes to take something and break it into the smallest pieces possible. I guess this was just his thing. Point being, my wardrobe was gone. In its place was a new, or relatively new IKEA type wardrobe, which was flimsy and ugly. I didn't like it. It wasn't of the quality of the one I had, but there was nothing I could do, and sadly, once the new wardrobe was put in place for the old one, and the old one destroyed, the lumberjack never returned. He was gone forever. I often think perhaps the old lumberjack had died felling the trees used to make my wardrobe, and that his spirit attached itself to the wood. That's my theory. Thank you for finishing the video up to the end. If you like this video, give a thumbs up, and always be updated with the newest release in the channel. Kindly check and watch on some of my videos as well. Remember, storytelling is the oldest form of education. Goodbye.